It's time for the SP and Bushy Show. Here's your hosts, SP and Bushy.
Awesome.
Give me the games now.
Another thing I did watch, though, I got to talk about it, is WWE Survivor Series. And that's what's going to bring us into our big talk today. It was the 30th anniversary of the Undertaker. He announced his retirement. So we're going to talk about his biggest moments right now in this podcast. I mean, for me, he is one of the iconic legends of wrestling, certainly in my Mount Rushmore of wrestling, a guy who's been able to be on top of his game for almost 30 years. There were some years in there where, he was only wrestling once a year. But, for the most part, to be as big and as legendary and to take a persona that really could have failed miserably in pro wrestling and to be able to make it exciting, make it something that was must-see, and make it evolve with the times was really cool.
Yeah, obviously you have a little more fondness than the Undertaker than I do. I really do like him, but he's not one of my favorite wrestlers as well. But he was always a staple when we were watching wrestling as kids. He was always a staple. He was always seemed to be on one of those main storylines as well. So he just overall just had a really great career, and again with the streak happening as well, then we'll probably get to that with that long form as well. So he was a very good wrestler, and he made numerous character changes, which really helped, extend his career.
He certainly did. Like I said, he was able to evolve the character with the times, I think, so that it never really got stale or felt stale. And even if it did start to, he was able to transition it in a way that made it feel new and original. He did a really good job of even protecting the gimmick. So, you were never seeing him, okay, as this dead guy on TV, but then all of a sudden he's out at the bars hanging out or tweeting out photos of himself doing crazy stuff on weekends. No, he was definitely all in with the character too, and I think that's why it worked so well.
Yeah, and again with the backstage stories, it seemed like he partied a lot, but he kept everything private. He kept his character really intact.
He certainly did, and it's certainly worth checking out if you have the WWE Network. The Stone Cold sessions where he just sits down with Stone Cold and they chat, they have some drinks, and then they just kind of reflect on his career there. As kind of like the locker room leader throughout that whole time too. Very, very, like I said, he's one of the big icons for me, and I guess that's why I pushed for this week. So we're going to break down some of his most iconic moments. I made 30, you made 14. We'll go through them and just kind of do like a more of a chronological statement of his career, because he was such an iconic presence. Let me ask you, when did you first start watching wrestling, and then kind of when did you stop?
Well, I first started watching wrestling, I think around 96 as well. I really got into the Monday Night Wars as well, and it really pushed me through, 96, 97, 98, obviously all through that Attitude Era, the Monday Night War. Obviously that was very important to me. And I kind of really stopped watching, I guess, when the Attitude Era, I guess really when people think about it now, when after WrestleMania 17, when Austin and McMahon really shake hands and form the alliance, and Austin kind of turn in and siding with Vince McMahon. I think that really kind of turned me off as well. But I still watched it a few months afterwards. But then, once I stopped, and I watch it here or there as well. And I still try to watch the Big Four as much as I can throughout this time.
Yeah, it's definitely not nearly as good as it was throughout the Attitude Era. I personally started watching when I was like 2, so like 1990, and that's kind of like one of the first wrestling memories that I have was the debut of the Undertaker, and so that was kind of my first moment for him, was when he just came out unannounced. Like, there was no hype leading up to him. He just came out as a surprise partner on a Survivor Series team, and there was just something so different about him and his presence. He had the insane finisher with the Tombstone Pile Driver. He drops Coco Beware with it. He eliminates Dusty Rhodes, who was one of their big established guys at the time as well, from the Survivor Series team match, and then obviously gets counted out. But it's like just from that first debut, he was a guy you wanted to see more of in a quick way.
Yeah, I had it as one of the top moments of his career was his debut, and just how dominant he was. He really was one of the most more dominant on his team. You know, again, eliminating Coco Beware and eliminating, I believe, Dusty Rhodes as well. And you know, I think he really put a hurting on Bret Hart as well. So you know, just an overall, just a great debut and a very iconic one as well.
Certainly was. Like, he came out unannounced. It was just one of those moments that, like, oh wow, this guy is. He was also so much bigger than a lot of other people at that time. So it's like, oh crap, this guy's size was just an intimidation factor. Then with as creepy as he was, and then to start the finisher with the tombstone. Like, as far as I know, he's done that tombstone finisher for 30 years now and hasn't hurt anyone with it. So that means he's been dropping people on their head pretty much for 30 years and has been able to keep them safe doing it, which is also impressive.
Yeah, he has probably the most, if not the most, iconic finisher of all of wrestling, and that is the Tombstone Pile Driver. And that was actually always one of my favorite moves. I always got to give him credit for that. You know, it really was always one of my favorite moves, and you always try to do it with the pillow as well, or if you had like a wrestling buddy or something like that as well.
Oh yeah, my Hulk Hogan wrestling buddy took so many tombstones, it was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I probably destroyed my parents' pillow with a lot of tombstones and elbow drops.
Absolutely. It was, I mean, that was a great memory. And then, but I mean, he came out on that first one with Paul Bearer as his manager, or not Paul Bearer as his manager, Brother Love as his manager, and which didn't make sense as a pairing. It wasn't until February of 1991 that Paul Bearer makes his debut, and that was another moment for me because it finally felt like they gave him a manager that fit.
Yeah, and again, he's always one of the probably one of the most iconic managers when you really think about it. He was always good. He looked scary as albeit. He got a little tan as when the Attitude Era starts, but really when he first started, he was all pale and really looked like a grim keeper or something like that. And like you know, he was doing night shifts at the graveyard or something, or at the funeral parlor.
Which he actually had been.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That is true, but he on really for like it's like Bobby Heenan, you know, Jimmy Hart, and like Paul Bearer. Those are like he's on the Mount Rushmore as far as like managers go.
He certainly is. I mean, he only like he and him and the Undertaker just had such a good thing, and they were able to ride that elevator all the way to the top. It was really, I mean, a perfect pairing, and he had that iconic "oh yes," like kind of like creepy voice to him too. And I mean, that was another moment for me where I figured I'd bring up that moment too.
Right, and that leads us towards probably his first big moment other than the debut, and that's a year later at Survivor Series '91, and that's winning the WWF Championship against Hulk Hogan. I know he had a little bit of a help with Ric Flair with the tombstone onto the chair, but I mean, it's crazy to think about with like Paul Bearer because I you know watching a lot of Undertaker's matches, I never remembered him, you know, interfering a lot, but Paul Bearer actually interfered a lot in this match. Like he really was like the prototypical heel manager at the time, and really the Undertaker really dominated that match. You know, it really dominated Hulk Hogan, and it was overall just like an amazing match, and it was just great. Like you know, he goes from you know this surprise entrance a year before to winning the WWF Championship in a year.
Yeah, it was such an iconic moment too because it was kind of that moment that solidified him as a main event player, and he stayed at the main event or like one of the main events on WWE for basically 30 years or any show he was on. Any show he was on, he was like the top draw, the main event, and that's what made it so impressive. That first title win over Hulk Hogan was iconic. You talk about it like Hulk Hogan was one of those guys like Hulk Hogan never lost in those days. So to see him lose to someone who really, like, at that point was still establishing himself was such a big moment.
Yeah, and it was crazy to think about it. I know he had a little help with Ric Flair as well with the tombstone, but it was just overall a great match. And Bobby Heenan was great on commentary. I rewatched this match last night, kind of doing a little research on this, and yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to see how over like Hulk Hogan was at the time. Like when his music came on, just like the people just going nuts. Like he really was going nuts at the time.
Bobby Heenan for me is one of the greatest of all time, and I mean that's a topic for another podcast. But he was so good, and obviously that match was so good and so iconic. Before that match happened though, another big thing happened, and that was the streak beginning at WrestleMania 7. He defeats Jimmy Superfly Snuka to start this streak of 21 consecutive WrestleMania victories. And I mean, it was a good match. It was one of those matches that I had on tape as a kid. And so, like, for some reason, I always watched WrestleMania 7 a lot. Just like if I was sick or there wasn't anything on, sometimes you just flip that on. And, like, him in that match was all of the, creepiness and everything else that he brought. But it was just, like I said, this really good match where you could see, okay, this guy's going to be the main event star. And you see the things that he does in that match that no one else – I still haven't seen anyone else do, like the walking of the ropes and just the crazy things that he was able to do that just differentiated himself from everyone else.
You said it yourself, and that's the case. You said it yourself. There's really nothing else much to say. I will get to maybe like his like best match, later on. But really, I think a lot of his matches to start out with the streak really kind of stunk until the match will come up later.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some stinkers in there. One of my ones that was underrated that doesn't get a lot of talking about was WrestleMania 8 a year later against Jake the Snake Roberts. That match I thought was pretty good. I like that match. I think you have two guys in there that are kind of creepy. Jake the Snake Roberts always kind of put on these good matches too. And I thought that was an underrated match as well.
Yeah, it was all right by my end, and I think WrestleMania 8 is actually one of the more underappreciated WrestleManias that really nobody talks about. But it's just it was overall just a good match, and it was okay by my standards.
Fair enough.
But again, I'm a tough critic.
Hey, that's okay. I like that one. Nevertheless, also in '92, I want to bring this one up. Survivor Series. He goes up against Kamala, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, in a casket match. And it was the first of many matches that were just created for him and this gimmick to just be creepy.
Yeah, we'll talk about casket matches as this retrospect goes. But yeah, this was the first casket match, and it was really kind of weird, and it was very quick and very painful and very easy. And it was a lot more build up towards the match than the match actually happens. So it was a good prototype for the casket match that we come to know and love. But it was an okay first match.
Yeah, it's not gonna win an award for best casket match of all time. Did Stone Cold just show up at your house?
No, yeah, he's gonna come in and beat the crap out of me with he's gonna put the beers and everything.
I heard the glass shattering. That's usually a sign that he's here.
We're talking about the Undertaker too much.
That said, yeah, that match, like you said, it's not gonna win any awards, but I always remember the promo afterwards where the Undertaker's putting the nails into this coffin with Kamala in it. So
yeah, I rewatched it again doing research on this, and I was just like, it's okay. I mean, obviously Kamala was very scared with the casket, but it's just overall just it was an okay match.
It's not the match of all time, and like I said, a lot of these aren't even necessarily his best matches, but some of these are just moments that stand out to me, including the one where he main evented the first Monday Night Raw. Once again, not a great match, but who else are they going to turn to for that?
Yeah, and obviously do you remember who he faced?
Damien Demento.
There you go. Yes. It's nothing special, but again, it's just an iconic moment. He main evented basically one of the longest running television shows we've had in history. So, the fact that he was part of the main event on that match is always good. And yeah, he's just a steady stream player, and just when you want to depend on somebody, you depend on the Undertaker.
Absolutely. My next one that I had listed was WrestleMania 12. You have kind of the show-stealing match with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, but you also have this really good matchup between the Undertaker and Diesel at that one.
Yeah, actually, let's go a year back, actually, or a couple of years back, actually. The Royal Rumble 1994, the first great casket match, actually, between him and Yokozuna. Yokozuna had a ton of help. Obviously, I think every heel.
A ton of help.
I think every heel in the company, I think was at that was in the ring at that time. But it was just great, and it really personified, the Undertaker character. You have the video package with him. It's like, I will not rest in peace, and you have green smoke going on. It's just Paul Bearer, doing his Paul Bearer thing. So, oh, and it really was the first great casket match that it really solidified the prototype of what a casket match should be. And it was just overall just a great match, and really one of the more underrated Royal Rumbles. And again, I talk about WrestleMania 8. Royal Rumble 1994 to me is one of the most underrated Royal Rumbles, I think. And we'll talk about it maybe in a future list.
Oh, absolutely. Royal Rumble is my favorite event. I like the 94 one. The match itself, the casket match, like you said, there were too many people. Yokozuna can buy him having some friends, but everyone, like you said, every heel in the building just comes out and like helps him throw the Undertaker in this coffin. And it was an endless stream of shenanigans in that one. But it was a crazy one for sure.
Yeah, and have Bam Bam Bigelow on top of the casket, to try to keep it lid shut so the Undertaker doesn't come out. It was just overall just a great match, and just great solidified the character.
Yeah, that one had a little bit more shenanigans than what I typically like, but nevertheless,
Yes.
Still an iconic moment for sure.
But yeah, with we'll go to WrestleMania 12 now, and it just a great match. Just a great match, and especially with like Diesel, and you really kind of think about, looking back at it now, like, oh my God, like he's going to join WCW in a few months. So it's really kind of weird seeing the this match happen at WrestleMania.
It certainly was. I mean, it's just a really good matchup. I mean, sometimes you get two big guys in the ring against each other, and the match is just kind of slow. It's kind of methodical. This one actually felt like a really good fight between two athletic big men who could actually move around in there. I don't know that either one of them, especially Diesel now, can't really. But either way, both of them like really leave it all out there in this WrestleMania 12 match. And what was obviously ended up being overshadowed by the Bret Hart-Shawn Michaels match later, but a really good matchup between The Undertaker and Diesel at this WrestleMania.
Yes, it was overall just a great match, and a great end to the to basically like a 3-month storyline that happened with obviously I believe like the Undertaker caused I believe Diesel caused the Undertaker to lose his title match, and then vice versa, and then you have the Undertaker coming out in the cage, coming out of the mat during the cage match against Bret Hart on that pay-per-view in February. So it's just overall a good ending to a good feud that they had.
Certainly was. My next one was a year later, WrestleMania 13, Undertaker against Sid. Obviously, the Undertaker had this legendary streak going the streak that would end up being legendary. At that point, he's only like 5-0. But at this WrestleMania, he defeats Psycho Sid and wins the belt for the first time at a WrestleMania.
Yeah, it's not the greatest match in the world. It was good that he got the title shot. He got his WrestleMania moment. I guess what we didn't know at the time, that he would have plenty more. And again, it's a match that's overshadowed again by Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels as well. And
that was Bret Hart Stone Cold that year.
Oh, Bret Hart Stone Cold. My bad. Yeah, Bret Hart Stone Cold. I totally forgot about. Now Stone Cold's going to come in and give me the stunner.
Yeah.
And it's just overall just it is a decent match, and supposedly some rumors of Psycho Sid and bowel movement far side, but it's overall just a decent match, and good ending. Leaves the crowd happy. Have the Undertaker win the WWF Championship.
Yeah, and some of these are more for the moment than they are for the match, and that was definitely one of them.
Absolutely, and we'll go later down on the road in 1997. The first Hell in a Cell match in Bad Blood '97. Now we'll talk about the another Hell in a Cell match later on, but this was a great match. That obviously gives us the prototype to what the Hell in a Cell was, and just like Undertaker beating the crap out of Michaels. And then you have the premiere of what would be probably his greatest storyline. That's the premiere of Kane, where Kane comes in, takes off the cage door, and just really beats up on the Undertaker.
Yeah, it's such a. I mean, it's perfect because I think Shawn Michaels and Kane are the Undertaker's two top rivals, and you have both of them in this match. It's an iconic match. It's the first ever Hell in a Cell. WWE now has a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view because this match was so successful. And the Undertaker obviously was one of the people that helped make it so successful. And again, it's another match that was created just for him, so you can't fault that.
Yeah, and it was unbelievable and just a great overall match. Like it's one of those matches you know go back and watch it. Like it's so much fun to look at. And you know, you had Michaels going through the table. You have him flipping over. Flipping over on the top of the cells, and it's just like, oh my God, you're hoping to God it doesn't crack, and then yeah, then you have the premiere of Kane as well.
Yeah, such an iconic moment. And then you also have the Kane storyline. That was such a big storyline that would build for like 6 months. And then at the WrestleMania, you have Kane against the Undertaker for the first time in a big match. And that one was an exciting one. It took him 3 tombstones to put Kane down and keep him down. So that one was another iconic match that came out of that Hell in the Cell too.
Yeah, and it was just a back and forth affair. It was just basically everybody's trading their move sets as well. Kane trying to mimic the Undertaker and vice versa as well. And then yeah, taking 3 tombstones to defeat Kane. And actually, this is probably the match. I think probably the WrestleMania match where people kind of look back at the Undertaker's career wise and look back. This is probably the first great WrestleMania match. Obviously, you like Jake Roberts and the Jimmy Snuka, but I think as other wrestling fans, they look back in like 14. This is the WrestleMania where people remember.
Right, absolutely. I like the Jake Roberts one. The Snuka one was obviously a glorified squash match where it just kind of showed off how good the Undertaker was and could be. But yeah, absolutely. This is definitely like that first iconic one. I think the one against Diesel is also iconic, but nevertheless, you look ahead, that was definitely a big match for him.
Oh, and to go back a little bit to how this storyline really do the other casket match in Royal Rumble 1998 first with Shawn Michaels as well. Again, a great rivalry between him and Michaels, and it's a lot like 1994, but with the twist. You have a lot of heels coming in trying to get to the Undertaker, but then Kane comes in thinking, oh, the brothers are gonna do well, and they're gonna team up and do well, and then you have Kane turning on Undertaker and then lighting the casket on fire. And really like an underrated thing too is have seeing that Shawn Michaels got injured with his back during this match as well.
Yeah, it was basically the end of Shawn Michaels as we knew him there win that match. And that one is definitely an iconic match. Like you said, you have Kane burning the casket over with the Undertaker supposedly in it. And so because of that, it's one of those moments that definitely stands out. And obviously 98 Royal Rumble is a great Royal Rumble as it is. Obviously you kind of have the start of another great rivalry that we'll talk to him about, I'm sure, on the Royal Rumble list at some point. But then you have it coming down on The Rock and Stone Cold in that Royal Rumble too.
Yes, and 98 is going to be like probably the crazy year for me. Just thinking about all the
Oh yeah.
moments. Really, I think 98 was probably his best year as far as wrestling wise, and it's just memorable storylines. And then obviously the month after WrestleMania, we have the first ever Inferno match
Oh yeah.
against Kane, and it was just great. And you got to see, the Undertaker's athleticism of him jumping over the top rope on a wall of flame basically, and dumping and taking out Kane and Vader as well. So it's a match that I think you got to kind of watch to kind of understand the Inferno match, but it was overall just a great storyline. It really kept the Kane Undertaker storyline going.
Certainly did. I believe that's like the third match that was invented just for him, or that he was in the first one of, which just goes to show you how much his impact on wrestling in general. And yeah, that is such an iconic match because you have Kane and Jim Ross going, "Oh my God, Kane's on fire! Kane's on fire!"
Oh, it's just overall just a great match, and just again 98 is just so good. And
Oh yeah.
to keep on with the 98, I think like right before King of the Ring, kind of that last episode before the King of the Ring, they bring down the Hell in the Cell, and you see him, going through the mat while Paul Bearer locked his cage so he could stay safe from Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he's getting it beating the crap out of Paul Bear, and it's just like, man, like looking back at it, I was watching it last night, and I was like, man, they don't make it like this anymore, and it's just so much fun. Like it's just all these goulash of people. You have Mankind, Kane,
Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's just crazy, and all that. And then going on before going on later on the Raw. Him dressing up as Kane in 1998 and beating Mankind, which Mankind thought it was Kane,
Oh
and he
yeah.
pulls out his mask to show that it was the Undertaker. Just to see Stone Cold's reaction is just great, and they cut and they cut off the air like right then and there, which made it awesome TV.
It certainly did. It was so much better in 98. 98 is probably the best year of wrestling in general because you got this whole great storyline with Austin and McMahon, and then you got the Undertaker Kane. You got all these great storylines all going on at once, and it just doesn't feel like you have storylines like that anymore. That being said, too, you talk about the Mankind rivalry. Even before that, they also had the first ever boiler room brawl. And I mean, it wasn't one that necessarily made my list, but it was another one that goes into the list of matches made for the Undertaker.
Well, and to keep the tradition going, I mean, they were part of the first ever buried alive match as well. So he kept that tradition going as well. And they actually had a really good rivalry in '96 as well. So I mean, that '96 and '90, probably that '96 and '98 was probably peak Undertaker.
There was so much good Undertaker. It's tough to say when the peak was, but 98 and 96 certainly were one of those peaks. I also got to talk. You talk about the buried alive match. You got to talk about Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. They're at the end of 98. Austin stunners him into the grave and gets him on the buried alive. A lot of the ones that I wrote down are Undertaker victories. This is not one of them, but definitely an iconic match that really solidified Austin as the face of the company.
I totally forgot about this one, but seeing you describe it now, I'm like, oh man, that definitely was a great moment, and I kind of maybe want to go back and maybe watch that or watch that show again as well. And it's just overall just a great game, or just overall just a great rivalry that they had in the mid to late 1998.
Certainly was an amazing one. I got to go into 99. You see him start forming this corporate ministry thing too. But the 98 WrestleMania, once again, not the best match ever, or 99 WrestleMania against the Big Boss Man, not the best match ever. It's kind of more of a slugfest if you go back and watch it. But like, I'm a huge Big Boss Man fan, but at the end of this match, he hangs the Big Boss Man from the ceiling. So this one, once again, isn't necessarily about the match, but it's about the moment. And that moment of the Big Boss Man hanging from the ceiling of this arena is insane.
Yeah, it's just interesting, and actually, that's my favorite Undertaker. Actually, I really like him with the corporate ministry as well. It's just really, it felt like he was like a heel character for the first time since he started. So it was a fresh kind of Undertaker, and he kind of updated the Undertaker, basically the Undertaker character, and it was fun. Again, yeah, a bad match, but an iconic moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have anything more in that late 90s area?
Yes, late '90s. Really, I think, really put the end to the Austin Undertaker rivalry for that year. Actually, was Fully Loaded 1999, and they had a First Blood match, and it was actually better. It was actually a better match than their match in SummerSlam in '98. But it was just overall just a great storyline, and it's just again like this crazy time of just a goulash of all these storylines crisscrossing each other. It's like you had X-Pac, Kane, I think you had like Ken Shamrock, and it's just like everybody from like the corporate ministry going in and helping as well, and it's just overall just a great match. And then had a thing as well with I believe that like the stipulation was if Austin won, McMahon was gone from WWE, but if Undertaker won, then Austin can't get another title shot. So it's just a lot of stakes happening at that time.
It certainly was. It was a crazy one. It was kind of around that same time too, where they had the finish. Where I think it was the pay-per-view after that, or maybe the one before, where the Undertaker and Kane both pinned Austin at the exact same time. So that's kind of what I think led up into that at some point, because both Undertaker and Kane pinned Austin at the same time to become dual champions.
Yes, it just the overall just great storylines, and it was just great television at the time, and it really made you want to watch all the time.
Right. You had to see what was going to happen next week, and it's not like that anymore.
No, it is not. And obviously, going on with the corporate ministry, obviously him kidnapping Stone Cold Steve Austin and kind of hanging him as well with the Undertaker symbol at that time, and as well, and then obviously the one where he kidnapped Stephanie McMahon as well, and having McMahon begging Austin basically to please help me in destroying the Undertaker.
Yeah, and I mean, it was all, I forget what the lead up or what the payoff to that was, but at some point he burns a teddy bear or and an Undertaker symbol on Mr. McMahon's lawn at one point.
Yeah, it was very weird and very interesting. And obviously, when we talk about maybe like our moments during the Attitude Era, we'll have to do this as well.
It certainly was. I mean, it's amazing, just everything. He was intricate in every part of, you know, WWE, or like even when he wasn't like the main storyline, he found a way to stay relevant.
Yes. Yeah. And then we're obviously going to go on to 2000, 2001, and then 2002.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the American Badass gimmick and him with, basically with Limp Bizkit's Rollin'. He probably helped Limp Bizkit a lot with Rollin' as well, and helped them be popular as well.
I don't know how much he was or wasn't involved in Limp Bizkit's popularity, but nevertheless, that was an iconic theme too. And I mean, once again, it was a way to keep himself relevant. I know you said you kind of stopped watching or slowed down there in 2001. 2001 was kind of the next moment. Actually, no, I'm going to go to 2000 and talk about the 6-man Hell in a Cell at Armageddon, where he throws Rikishi off the cell.
Yeah, again, another iconic moment with him throwing somebody off the cell, which we'll probably get to the most important one later on. But it just overall, that was actually a very good match and probably one of the best Hell in a Cell matches of all time.
It was an exciting one for sure, no doubt about it. And then in 01, he started this feud with Diamond Dallas Page when they were starting to cross over some of the WCW guys, where like DDP ended up stalking his wife at the time. And then you end up in this good tag team matchup with The Undertaker and Kane against DDP and Chris Kanyon. And it's a steel cage match at SummerSlam 01. I remember they were here like the week before in Denver. And so I kind of remember the lead up to this one. And then the cage match itself is still pretty good.
Yeah, it was a great it felt like a great storyline, but again, it felt like it was Vince McMahon trying to beat up on WCW characters, which is odd because I mean DDP was actually one of the most over stars in the WCW at the time, and it was just overall just like a weird angle, but it looked like it was fun, and it's probably when I stopped watching as well. I didn't really see this angle, but I'll take your word for it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I guess I'll go. Did you have anything else before we get to that Hell in the Cell match, or do you want me to just run through the list?
Just keep running through the list. I think it's later on the 2010s that I have for iconic moments.
Nice. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a list of things you need to go back and watch then on the WWE Network with them. This list is going to go with my first one is the O2 Rumble. And he's in the ring. He's been dominating for a while. And he gets eliminated by the winner of a reality show called Tough Enough, which is to find the next WWE superstar. And so for him to allow this guy to eliminate him kind of shows that, okay, he was willing to do whatever it took to help other people rise up the ranks as well. And he gets eliminated in like one of the iconic upset eliminations of the Royal Rumble. He's busy beating up on the Hardy Boys, but then gets knocked out of the ring in a surprise elimination by this rookie Maven.
Yeah, it's a very iconic moment. I actually have seen this moment as well, and looking back at it, I think the Undertaker really isn't appreciative of Maven at that point. But again, yeah, he put Maven over with that thing, but obviously Maven did not capitalize on that opportunity.
No, and in fact, later the Undertaker takes him out of the ring and goes upstairs and slams him into a popcorn machine on the concourse. But nevertheless, it's still a fun moment. My next moment that I have, it's going to be later that year. He gets into a match up on Raw for the WWE Championship. He's defending it against Jeff Hardy at the time. And it's a really good ladder match between the two that kind of helped Jeff Hardy kind of take that next step as well.
I had not seen this match. I'll take your word for it of how good it is. Obviously, we know Jeff Hardy in ladder matches are
synonymous.
It's phenomenal, yeah, and it's just adding the Undertaker to it and adding a championship title match to it. Seems like a fun match to be a part of.
Yeah, and 02, I felt like he was kind of back on his prime again because he had a great triple threat match with The Rock and Kurt Angle at Vengeance 02, and then a good Hell in the Cell match against Brock Lesnar later that year where he kind of helped Brock Lesnar get over as well.
Yes, and we'll probably mention Brock Lesnar a little bit more later on, as well as far as with my top Undertaker moments.
And then I got to go to 03, the Vengeance in 03. It was held at the Pepsi Center. It was the last time I actually got to see him in person, and it was a really good match between him and John Cena.
Did he put Cena over, or did he?
No,
beat Cena?
he defeated Cena, but it was a good matchup where Cena, even in losing, still looked good, where it kind of helped him on his road to becoming a superstar as well.
Right, and just seeing Cena, and this is infant Cena as well, and just seeing what a star that he will become in a few years, and it's
Right.
Just a great thing, and I'm glad you got to see it as well, since it was held at the Pepsi Center as well. It's just a shame that WWE really doesn't do pay-per-views here.
It is. It's a shame, and I think that's why the interest in even at Raws aren't selling out necessarily anymore at the Pepsi Center. That being said, I think that my next moment, 04, there wasn't a whole lot in 03, but 04, WrestleMania 20 against Kane. This is one of my favorite moments, and it's when he brings back the old school kind of creepy gravedigger Undertaker in a matchup against Kane at WrestleMania 20. Really good matchup. Kind of one-sided again, but again, the Undertaker just kind of coming back to that old persona was cool.
Yeah, I always like the entrances where he brings out like the minions and all that with the torches. It started, I think, with WrestleMania 14, so it's nice to bring that back for a Kane match, and a very an iconic moment for WrestleMania as well.
Certainly was. Later that year, he fights JBL in a last ride match where they basically are trying to fight to see who can lock each other in a hearse. And so, again, it's another one of those matchups that was just invented just for him.
Yeah, there we go. Another match, like a Hertz match as well. And just, again, he's just the innovator with all these matches.
Certainly is. I mean, he had a good WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 21 against Randy Orton. But I'm going to move forward again. I want to go to the 2007 Royal Rumble, where he ends up coming in at number 30 and wins it. He has a great moment in the last, when it's down to him and Shawn Michaels, spoiler alert, it's down to him and Shawn Michaels, and it kind of sets up this rivalry of incredible matches that they're going to have in years to come. It's such a great battle between the two to see who's going to finally win it, and The Undertaker finally wins it.
Yeah, he's never been a Royal Rumble victory until at that moment, so it's just nice to add this to his resume, and then obviously winning the world championship against Batista. That's actually a very good moment. I should have put that in, keeping the streak alive and winning the world title against Batista, I believe at WrestleMania 23. So
yeah,
it was overall actually a good match, and him and Batista looked very good together.
It was an incredible match. I like this match a lot. Batista, now known obviously for his starring roles in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, where he's fantastic. But that being said, I mean, he and The Undertaker put on a great match at WrestleMania 23. Go back and watch that one. It's definitely on the list.
Yeah, I think it's one of these matches where it got overshadowed. I remember watching this actually live, and I think it's one of these matches that got overshadowed because of Michaels against Cena later on, which that was an iconic match as well. So it's just overall just two good world title matches at a WrestleMania.
Certainly was. The next matchup I had for him was SummerSlam 2008. It's a Hell in the Cell matchup against Edge. And basically he choke slams Edge off of some ladders through the ring in the end to win it.
Oh man, just a nice little throwback to the Attitude Era. I have not personally seen this match. I guess I should go back and watch it as well. I know I'm not so much as any help, past 1999, but
hey, that's okay.
Overall,
like I said, I'm just giving you a list of stuff to go back and watch at this point. Did you see his two matchups at WrestleMania against Shawn Michaels?
I have seen
25 and
one.
20.
I have seen one. I believe I saw the latter one rather than the earlier one.
Both are
I
incredible.
I know both are obviously incredible. Obviously, with the second one with the career versus the streak, and it was actually really an honor because I think a few weeks before WWE had a house show here, and Shawn Michaels was in the was like the main event. And sure enough, it was like one of his final matches as a full time performer. So it was like an honor to see in one of his final matches as a performer in that way. So it was really cool to see, but again a little bit sad. But it was just overall two really good matches that really solidified the Michaels Taker rivalry.
Certainly did. He had two great matches the following years against Triple H. And then after that, he has like a good last streak match, the last one of the streak, where he defeats CM Punk at WrestleMania 29.
Yeah, the one with CM Punk was actually really good, and I wish maybe that could have ended the streak a little bit. Maybe probably put CM Punk over as well as maybe as one of these people to care about. And maybe if that happened, maybe CM Punk maybe kind of stays a little bit more in the WWE. But just two overall, just great matches, and especially too the one with Triple H where Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee as well, and they try, Triple H try, or Shawn Michaels try to help Triple H as well. So it was overall just a good match as well.
It certainly was. I mean, obviously, all of those are iconic moments. Did you have any other ones too that you wanted to touch on?
Uh, we're gonna go a year later. Yeah, WrestleMania 30 against Brock Lesnar, and basically when the streak ends as well. It's just crazy to think about that. That was going to happen. I thought maybe wrestling fans thought, oh, the streak, he's going to stay undefeated the entire time, and then just to see him lose. It's just crazy to think about, and just seeing Paul Heyman's face and then that fan's face that really has become a meme for the rest of the time now, and just seeing the reaction from both of those people, really just an iconic moment, seeing the streak actually done.
Yeah, I didn't care for this moment. I think I didn't want it to ever end, I guess, for me personally. And then if you were going to end it with someone who could have benefited from ending it more than I guess Brock Lesnar could have. Brock Lesnar at a point was already a very established star just because of his UFC days. So I think he didn't need the victory so much to benefit from it. I think they could have made another star by having someone else like a Roman Reigns or someone else like a Sheamus even try to be the one to end that streak and be that guy as opposed to being Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, but again, Brock Lesnar was like a menace, and I think they wanted to make the menace a little bit like a monster, really. And then, like, here's this guy, he beats the streak.
Yeah, I get it. I said it wasn't for me, but I mean, it's everyone has their. I mean, I think everyone thought at some point it needed to end, and that was a big moment for sure.
Yeah, and it's probably a moment we'll probably think about for the rest of the time as well. I think it's one of these moments, again, it was overshadowed by something that happened later on, and that's Daniel Bryan basically the unified titles as well, and against Triple H and Batista, or Randy Orton and Batista actually. Yeah. But it's just but it's an iconic moment that really got overshadowed again by WrestleMania as well. And think about going back again with WrestleMania 14. Obviously a great match with Kane, but that gets overshadowed by the Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels match as well. So it seems like really a weird pattern that is just like really some of these iconic moments that he's had in WrestleMania that's just been overshadowed by something else that's happened later on in that night.
Certainly is the case. There was one WrestleMania for sure that I can guarantee you he didn't get overshadowed on. And that was this year's WrestleMania against AJ Styles. And his final match, it was a boneyard match, so a new type of match once again. Obviously, it was filmed cinematically, but it was a very interesting and exciting way to do it. And I thought a perfect way to have his final match.
Yeah, just a perfect way. And again, a great performer with AJ Styles, and then a different type of match with the boneyard match, and yeah, just a typical type of Undertaker victory, and then him saying rest in peace. It's just very iconic, and just a great way to go out on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of led into this past Sunday at Survivor Series when they did the official farewell to him. congratulations. Obviously, a great career. And then there's obviously that one more moment that we got to talk about, and that was
Oh,
your
I
take
got
on
one more before the moment we're talking about.
Okay, hit me.
WrestleMania 32, the
Wow.
Hell in the Cell against Shane McMahon.
Oh, that's a
Again,
good one.
it felt like an Attitude Era match, really minus the blood. I mean, really, there wasn't like any blood whatsoever. There was chairs, there was steel steps. You know, obviously Shane falling off the cell onto the table. I mean, it really was the best match on that card, to be honest. Me personally, but it was just great seeing like these two old guards, you know, finding out and just seeing Shane McMahon like a lunatic just falling off onto a table. But it was just overall just a great match and just probably one of the most iconic WrestleMania moments of the past decade.
I think Shane McMahon is one of the most underrated competitors of all time, just because he is insane. He flies off of stuff. He'll fall off of anything. So, I mean, he just has these iconic moments that he kind of make him a little bit underrated, I think.
He is. He's certainly a very underrated person, and just all the stunts that he's done, and just people are like, wow, like he did some crazy stuff, and he was part of a lot of storylines back in the Attitude Era days.
And he never had to do it. I mean, he was rich. He never had to do any of this stuff. He never had to fall off the cell and go through the table against the Undertaker, but it was another iconic moment in the Undertaker's career.
Yes, very good iconic match, and probably one of my lasting memories of the Undertaker.
Awesome. Now we got to talk about it. Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring, 98. It's just an insane match. You have the Undertaker and Mankind. It starts with them fighting up on top of the cell, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, it just starts with the fighting on top, and then obviously Undertaker throwing Mankind off the cell and onto the table, onto the Spanish announcing table, and it's just one of these iconic moments when you think of the Attitude Era. One of the first images you probably see is Mick Foley falling out of the cage, you know, midair, right onto the announcing table, and it's just an overall just a gruesome match. And when you read about the history of this match and like just all the injuries that happened between Mick Foley and Undertaker too, because he was playing with it, because I believe he had a bad foot at the time too, so he's going down as well, and it was just overall just like a gruesome match as well. And then him choke slamming Mankind through the cell. I mean, it's just an awesome match, really. It's one of the most iconic matches of all time.
I would say it might be the most iconic match of all time. It's one of them for sure, because like you said, you have him getting thrown off the cell, you have him getting choke slammed through the cell, you have that iconic moment, and I guess this is why I think of it more of a Mankind match than an Undertaker match. But you have that moment of him with the tooth in his nose, where the camera kind of like zooms in on him, and he's got a tooth lodged in his nose that is falling out of his mouth. He gets dropped on some thumbtacks later on to end the thing finally. But I mean, it is just a brutal bloodbath of a match, and it is an intense match. And like you said, it's got just so many iconic moments that you got to go back and see it.
Right, and it's seeing like the Undertaker as well. You know, when he throws it off, he's like, "Oh my!" He really has kind of like this look, like he has to look like menacing, like, "Yeah, that was cool." But then he has like kind of this look like, "Oh my God, did I just kill Mick Foley?" Like it's just one of these crazy moments, or just like, "Oh my God, is Mick all right?" Like I bet his mind was spinning at that moment too. It's just like, what in the world is happening at this time? And then they actually had to raise the cage with him on top as well. So I mean, just like scary moments, you know, because two almost 300-pound people are on top of a cage as well, and like you can hear the springs. Snapping off as well. Like it is just overall just a gruesome match, and it's just so great. And and again, the commentary too of Jim Ross, it's just so iconic.
It certainly is. It's an amazing match. You got the Jim Ross call of, "Oh my God, he killed him! He killed him!"
Yeah, and it's just like, good God, like, will somebody stop the dang match?
And yeah, like you said, you have him like kind of like, yeah, you have him like raising the cage with him on it. Then it comes back down. Then Mankind starts climbing back up, so the Undertaker climbs back up too. You have him fighting up there, which obviously it wasn't built for that. which is why he goes falling through the cage at one point. And like I said, it was just a brutal culmination of a great rivalry between the two.
Yes, it obviously it was a 2 month 2 month battle, or just a 2 year battle actually, that really culminated on that moment. And just seeing, man, good God, like all the punishment that Mick Foley took in that hand, it's just like, oh, like, and just seeing the Undertaker too, it's like, oh my God, like what in the world is happening? Like, yeah, I bet he was scared, that the fact is like, oh my God, I hope I didn't kill Mick.
Oh, I'm sure he was, especially because the time he chokeslammed him through the cell, like a chair that had been thrown up there, comes down and hits him in the head too. And I mean, it's just such an insane match. I mean, once again, insane match in a career full of insane matches. I mean, in the insane moments. So congratulations to the Undertaker on such a great career.
Yes, he's a great wrestler, and we will always remember him. And obviously, he's going to be a first ballot WWE Hall of Famer. Or is he already inducted, or
No,
no?
he's not. He's gonna be
No,
first
but
ballot.
so probably next year he'll probably be inducted. If not, maybe in 2022 when they actually get people as well. So he obviously going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and then it's going to be quite a speech. Let's put it that way. And I actually may watch the Hall of Fame ceremony for that reason.
I know I will. Like I said, he's one of my favorites of all time. Definitely on my Mount Rushmore. So, I mean, such a great performer. Once again, congratulations to him on such a great career that came officially to a close this past Sunday at Survivor Series. So it was a lot of fun. Thanks for all the memories to the Undertaker.
Yes, thank you again. And I promise people we will get to the time machine football games. It's just these stuff keep coming up. Maybe something will happen, and we'll have to do another talk about long form.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, NFL season is going on for another month, so I figured we'd talk about the Undertaker today since that just happened. We'll probably do that time machine game next week, NFL style. Talk about the NFL games we wish we could have been at, because I know that's going to be a long list as well. Thank you again for watching. It was a great time. I had a great time, Bushy.
I did too. Yeah, no, I've already really compiled most of my list so far with the time machine games, and yeah, this is going to be a really long. We may have to split it again into 2 episodes.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you'll watch all of our episodes. And if you haven't, if this is your first episode, be sure to go back, watch all of our other episodes. It's a fun show. We hope you'll enjoy it as much as we enjoy making it. And once again, thank you for watching and stay safe out there.
Peace.